Greetings, my name is JC,
And I'm Ian.
and this is the Gamer's Gaiden. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about online gaming and MMOs. But before we get to that, Ian, what have you been playing this week?
Well, JC, it's going to come as no surprise. I've been playing Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
Cool.
But I'm not going to talk about that because I actually played and finished something
Mhm.
that I do want to talk about. A little game for the PSVR called Ghost Giant.
Awesome.
What's Ghost Giant? You're going to ask JC?
What is Ghost Giant, Ian?
Why, JC, if you go back and watch our episode on things that we enjoyed this year so far,
Mm-hmm.
this was on things that I missed.
Right.
And I can now say I haven't missed it.
Very well.
And it's very well done.
What is the game about?
It is about a young fox. I think he's a fox
Mhm.
named Louis. You find him crying into a pond. That's how you're created, out of a child's tears.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
But
We're running with it.
yeah. So you're this giant ghost that helps him out. You help him with a bunch of tasks. You kind of learn about his life and his current situation, and it's very sad. But it was really good.
Cool.
You know, each level is essentially a playground.
Okay.
You can interact you typically have to interact with things around you.
Okay.
I played it entirely seated.
Mm-hmm. Is it more of like what kind of gameplay does it have? Is it like platforming puzzle?
No, so you have no control over Louis.
Okay.
You just have two giant ghost hands,
Mm-hmm.
which you can both grab and poke.
Okay.
And fist bump.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, you have a little secret handshake with him,
Nice.
which
You
is
kind of have that in Moss too. You can
adorable.
give the little mouse a high five.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's cute. Anyways, I'm so glad that I played it. It was another fantastic VR game this year, which I think I'm up to 4.
Cool.
Oh no, Astrobot was last year,
Well, you played it this year.
but I played it this year.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I've just there'd be 3 really impressive ones that were released this year
Mm-hmm.
that I've really enjoyed. So yeah, it's been good so far. Keep them coming, Sony. I want to keep playing your good VR titles. Don't give me any garbage ones.
Cool.
JC, what have you been playing this week?
Well, should come as to no surprise.
League of
but
Legends.
League of Legends. Yeah. So I think my count is level 26 now. Basically going.
good.
Yeah. 4 more levels to go, so almost there. To level 30, so I can see what rank I can get. And yeah, so pretty much the same thing going on throughout this last week as it was the week before it anyway.
Still getting matched up with Master Tier players?
A few of them, yeah. Met a Shaco player who is likely some godly type. He had a 100% win rate, and he won that game too.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because he came out of nowhere. And what was interesting is I didn't know that the clone of Shaco could be controlled from like mid lane to top lane. But like we would see Shaco top lane and it was his clone, and all of a sudden Shaco himself would like insta kill somebody in the mid lane. And it's like, but he was up here, like shouldn't he be near his
I think there's a good amount of range on that.
Yeah, so I guess if he spawns it in the middle and then kind of diverges different ways. But yeah, he was really, really good. It was interesting. It was an interesting defeat, that's for sure.
What I always found interesting about the clone
Mm-hmm.
was that it will, if someone hasn't seen, if the other team hasn't seen you since like level 3 or level 4,
Right.
it will show you at level 3 or level 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It won't give away that you've hit 6.
Mm-hmm.
So you just see this
Moving your clone first, and it's like, oh, he's only level 4 or something. It's like,
and then
nope.
bam, stab.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, continue to play that. Other than that, one Shaco game was really the big highlight. So yeah, I'm trying to get it to level 4 over the next week, and we'll see how that goes. And then we'll start doing the rank games and see how those go.
Well, good luck.
Cool, cool. But yeah, so let's get right into it, into this week's segment of MMOs. And yeah, so figured we would start off by kind of talking about the origins of graphical MMOs, which the first one was Neverwinter Nights
That's
from
really interesting because
1991.
I had no idea that it went back that far.
Yeah, and whenever I told you about it, you even looked up Neverwinter Nights and tried to find like the game and some information on it. And just searching Neverwinter Nights generally usually gets you
The
the
2013 or two?
yeah. There's a new Neverwinter game which
Yeah.
is online, and there's the Neverwinter Nights BioWare game which was from the early 2000s.
Yep.
And unless you put in like AOL or like 1991 or MMO, then you usually don't find the pages that talk about the original Neverwinter Nights.
Now tell me why this was so popular, JC.
Well, it was the first graphical MMO, and the interesting thing about this game was that you had to have an AOL subscription in order to get it.
I mean, who
So,
didn't back in 91?
yeah, it was basically like one of three service providers, especially in the States. This was the largest one,
I know in
from I
Canada they
understand.
dumped the discs in your mailbox
Yeah, you
every
used to
other
get little
day.
diskettes and eventually CDs, about like 3 free months of it or something like that, which were invalid after you've used one of them. So I don't know why they keep on sending them. Uh, So yeah, the interesting thing about this game, in addition to requiring that subscription service, was that there wasn't a monthly service as what most people think of, like a 14.99 or whatever. It was actually an hourly service, and it was $6 an hour. It eventually
Wow.
came up to be around $2 an hour, because I think this game ran up until '97, whenever it was finally closed. And it was, if I recall correctly from looking it up, it was around $2 an hour near that time as well. Yeah, and that's pretty insane, especially like with the amount of hours that I've put into like more modern MMOs. If I had to pay $6 an hour to play the game, I would definitely be more broke than I already am.
Oh
But
yeah, man, that's
yeah,
insane.
yeah. But the one main reason why I know about this game is because I inadvertently found out about it whenever I was in college. And during that time, I was kind of playing EverQuest 2 and Dungeons and Dragons Online, and I had previously had played the gold box games. So my friends and I in college were kind of curious and talking about like, well, what was the first like MMO? And like we found some of the MUDs and stuff like that, but the graphical one was this one, Neverwinter Nights. So I actually found an ISO of the game online and download it so that I could run it on like a local server, basically, just on my
Okay.
computer through DOSBox, and then did some tweaking of the character files and basically gave them like very good stats and a bunch of gold and stuff like that, so I could get them going. Because I think if I recall correctly, before actually editing my character sheet, I sort of like walked around a little bit and I walked into an area and there was a beholder there and I was a level 1 character. So I'm like, oh, like without having had a character I could import in from like a gold box game or something like that, or like hack a character so that they're better than level 1 with absolutely nothing or other people to play with, because I couldn't connect with other people with this ISO. Or I think you could, but you'd have to set up a whole bunch of extra stuff that I didn't really look into because I was more just curious about what the game was because I'd already
Yeah.
played gold box games. But yeah, so I played around with it for a few hours and kind of was kind of happy with my experience with it, and just like, oh, that's kind of neat. Yeah, it plays exactly like any of the gold box games that I remember, like Pool of Radiance or Curse of the Azure Bonds. And it you could just play with a whole bunch of people, which I think was just parties of like 4 or 6 or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of a neat idea, and actually a lot earlier than what most people think of whenever they think of like whenever MMOs started, because a lot of people are like the mid or late '90s or something like that is where they usually think of where the first MMO was.
I actually thought it was quite a bit later. I thought Ultimate Online was the first.
Yeah, I used to think that for the longest time too, but it was kind of, I guess, one of the most popular ones that were early. So yeah, with the origin story of graphical MMOs aside, let's talk about our first experiences with MMOs. Ian, how about you start? I think you played EverQuest first.
I did play EverQuest first.
Cool.
Yeah, probably because it came out in '99,
Yeah, like 98, 99 or something.
and I picked it up probably around 2000, 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the box in an electronics boutique
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they were called at the time. I saw the box. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And I bought it. I got it home. I was like, I need a subscription for this. So with some real fast talking with my parents and getting their credit card, I was able to load it up. I think I made like a, I don't know, almost like Norse Viking-y looking character, probably like Nord,
Cool.
maybe. Started out in the like northern section. It was all snowy, and I had no idea where to go. Like it gives you nothing.
Yeah, I did play EverQuest 1 as kind of like what was the first EverQuest game while I was playing the second one for like all of 2 days, and it really required you to read the manual to understand what was going on, because like the game interface itself and dialogue doesn't really explain exactly how to do a lot of the things that you can do. So.
No, there was like, so I got kind of bored of it pretty quickly.
Right.
For me, the thing I'll remember most about EverQuest was making a wood elf.
Okay.
I loved their area because it was all up in the trees. I enjoyed exploring through the little village.
Right.
And then you would actually have to take ladders down to get to the forest floor, which was where like monsters were.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wandering around through this like tree village or treetop village, and I found a bag of loot.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like,
Just like randomly sitting there.
yeah, I walked into like a hut, and it was sitting on, there's like bunk beds on the one side, and I remember it was sitting on the top bunk.
Right.
And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, there's just random bags of loot. I've just never found one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe this is like starting gear
Right.
or something like that. Maybe this is something to like get me going. And I actually I equip the items. I'm like, this is really cool. I'm gonna go fight some monsters. And like I'm trying to find my way to one of the ladders because like there's like no guidance through that game. And all I can see in the like public chat was like, who took my stuff?
Uh-oh.
Someone stole my bag of stuff. It was in like this building. I put it on the top bunk of this bed, and like I mean, still to this day, I think to myself, like, why would you just leave your stuff there?
Right.
Granted, yes, it was wrong that I took it. I didn't realize it was somebody's, but I did take it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why would you? I can't think of another game that I played where you can just like, yeah, I'm gonna
Randomly.
like put all of my gear over here.
Yeah. Like you
Please,
can do that in like Diablo.
please don't touch it. But
Yeah.
Diablo, for the most part, you're playing with people that you know.
Yeah, you're playing with like instance people and
Yeah.
yeah.
Or like, I guess you could play on BattleNet
Mm-hmm.
and get randoms, but
Yeah. But you see the person drop the stuff, and then you would see the other person take it. So it would be
yeah, there's
very
not.
right there in your face as to what's going on.
So why you would leave a giant sack full of your stuff,
Yeah.
and then just like, I'm out of here.
I would imagine maybe what they did was they had it on character A and then dropped their stuff in a location they thought maybe nobody would see it, and then they logged in with character B because they were transferring the equipment from character to character. Because like later on, you could just leave it in like banks and stuff like that, and then
Or, like,
Link's
mail it.
character, yeah, and mail
Yeah.
it. So like that was more of a
Well, I
feature.
never thought about that, JC. Whoops.
Whoops.
So I ruined that guy's day. That
Months probably.
I know it's so me ruining somebody's time is one of my fondest memories of EverQuest. I went down, I used the items, I killed some spiders and squirrels. I don't remember
Mm-hmm.
exactly what the enemies were. I don't think they were anything crazy.
Yeah.
I probably played for like 2 hours with that stuff and then
Moved on.
yeah. But that's sort of my first MMO experience. It made me not want to play MMOs.
Yeah.
How was yours? What did you play?
So my first MMO experience was with Final Fantasy 11.
Oh!
And
Okay.
yeah, and October of 2003, I pre-ordered the game and got it on launch, and it was really cool because I had like just gotten a credit card that year, and I knew this game was coming out, and I needed it to play it and stuff like that. And my computer was good enough to play it, and yeah, so I basically played that, and then I remember very vividly having to install like 5 discs or something like that, and then having to like download a bunch of like stuff from the internet basically for the
Yep.
play online stuff, and then for the actual game. And at the time, I had a 56K modem because in our town we didn't have high speed internet yet. Uh, and yeah, so basically it took 7 hours, 8 hours basically to download everything. But I ended up, I think it ended downloading sometime early in the morning, and I had to go to school the next day. And I basically logged in, created my character because I knew exactly what I wanted to be. I was a elf red mage, and yeah, so I created my character, and then I went to school, and I barely had slept because I was basically like I would sleep for like an hour and then wake up and then like check it. I'm like, oh, it's still downloading, and sleep and wake up and keep on rinse repeating that like throughout the entire night. But the next day, like I just talked about Final Fantasy 11 the entire time because I had seen like the harbor and the game, and I'm like, oh my god, this game is so amazing, and I knew nothing about it. Like other than like I had the strategy guide, so I was like looking at pictures and like trying to like decide like, oh, I should go over to this area and stuff like that and whatnot. But yeah, so I played that, and eventually, finally, that weekend, I had a whole bunch of time to play the game, and I played it a lot, and I was really the only person playing the game, so it was kind of lonely playing it because I'm not really adverse to like saying hello to people online, and especially if I don't know the person, and so I basically played that game early on solo a lot, and anybody who's played Final Fantasy 11, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode actually, but any
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the Final Fantasy episode.
yeah.
The Final Fantasy episode.
And so anybody who's played the game early on, there's next to no single player content. But
Yeah.
I played the game on and off for quite a while, for like a year or two. I didn't really get anywhere with it, and every now and then I would find a party. But once I dual class into a white mage, people found my classes more useful and stuff like that. But I always complained that I should just like be a white mage and then like
Well, yeah, because
constantly heal
I played a
people.
white mage,
Yeah.
and it as soon as I went into a zone, people were just like, "Do you have a party? You look like you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Do you wanna heal us?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure.
Sure, why not?
Let me throw some heals at you, and you guys kill stuff and get
Yeah.
experience for me."
So that was kind of like also my first foray into like basically playing a utility and support class basically, which I actually turned out that I actually really like those classes. So
Okay.
yeah, that was kind of my first experience, and after the couple of years, I basically stopped playing the MMO, and until I just uh, dived into other ones. But yeah, that was my first experience and impressions on it. After a time in around 2004, whenever World of Warcraft came out, MMOs became much more mainstream, which we're gonna call the WoW era, because it's kind of like the MMO that most people kind of like have played and talked to, and everybody kind of tries to mimic.
Well, that was your your catalyst because
Hmm.
you had this huge franchise in Warcraft,
Yeah,
which was available on so many different consoles
yeah,
and like or
and
in various places because you could play it on PC, which obviously was the better place to play it. But there was it was available on the PS1, so you had all these different people who had exposure to it,
hmm,
whereas something like EverQuest is a little bit more niche.
yeah,
And Final Fantasy, I mean, Final Fantasy, you did have some, but
hmm.
it was only available
The
on PC
gameplay was a lot
and
different.
PS2.
Yeah, the gameplay in Final Fantasy Online, though, to its account, was a lot different than the gameplay in the core games as well, which,
Yeah.
in my experience, kind of turned a lot of people off. But yeah, a lot of MMOs that had existed prior to this point, as you said, were very niche, and basically once this game came out, MMO players just in general went from millions of players to tens of millions of players across the board,
Yeah.
which just kind of like exploded in popularity. And I think a reason for that was partially due to the overall appeal that you said and the IP of it. But also the graphic engines were a lot more enhanced in comparison to the previous ones, which were fairly primitive, especially like the older games like RuneScape and Ultima Online and EverQuest 1. EverQuest 1 did kind of look Like
It was okay.
yeah, it looked all right. It was definitely 3D, and RuneScape, like it's still around, and like there's updated graphic for it too, and it looks pretty primitive in comparison to like new games today. But in comparison to WoW at the time, like these games didn't necessarily look that great.
No.
And this continues to be more and more true as time goes on, but the gameplay mechanics are much more user friendly in comparison to like your experience with EverQuest One, and even my experience with EverQuest One going back on to try and to play it. I paid for the game and the month subscription, and I was
That's
like,
too many months.
yeah, and I feel like if I had enough players playing it, I probably would have found fun out of the game. But just playing by myself definitely was different. But yeah, so the gameplay interfaces and everything just became more user friendly than the previous generation, basically. But I know you played World of Warcraft a lot,
I
so
I did. I
yeah.
did. I was in and out for probably about 10 years.
Hmm.
Because I played it immediately when it came out. I didn't have a good enough PC at the time, but I had a friend who did. He was actually the only one in our group who had a good PC, so we all played on his account,
Oh wow.
and we would just kind of throw him some money occasionally for the subscription
Yeah.
fee. But yeah. So we were all playing. We mostly all played hunters
Oh okay.
because we couldn't play together.
Right.
And at least with a hunter, you always had your pet.
Hmm.
So
Made single player a little bit easier.
yeah, yeah, and you didn't have to try to make friends.
Because from what I understand, World of Warcraft early on in classic WoW has like most of its content is group based, right?
Any of like a lot of the big things that you do, like even some of the, I guess, bigger quest
Hmm.
lines, you need a couple people.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I remember struggling with a lot of things in well, in vanilla.
Hmm.
Uh, I probably made it up to 20 because like through playing on and off um on my friend's account.
Right.
And then I stopped playing. Actually, I stopped hanging out with that guy. Um, but
Fair enough.
I stopped playing before that. Anyways, a few years later, Burning Crusade was coming out, and my friend group at the time was like, we should all play World of Warcraft.
Right.
New expansion coming out, new races, new areas. Like, it'll be fun. And the few people who hadn't started were going to start over. So, like, we're all going to be at level 1. So I was like, yeah, sure. Let's jump into this. So the bulk of my memories are kind of from Burning Crusade on,
Right.
because I actually was playing with a group. We did some of the early dungeons.
Hmm. Yeah, I find that most people that I know who have played World of Warcraft, Burning Crusade is kind of their time that they enjoy the game the most.
It was I wouldn't say that it was when I enjoyed it the most, to be totally honest with you,
Sure.
because I still found things in Burning Crusade were inhibiting.
Okay.
It was still expensive to get your mount. It was still like it was still hard to maintain your skills
Hmm.
because you had to go see your trainer like every level, basically, and you would have new skills to purchase,
Hmm.
and there'd be some levels where you just couldn't afford them.
Right.
It was worse in vanilla, but yeah, like it was still pretty bad in Burning Crusade. And then I really found when you got to into Lich King and beyond,
Okay.
that's when prices of stuff like dropped. It was a
Okay.
lot easier to make a level 1 character and get it up to um like 20. You could have a level 1 character to 20 within like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Um with very little additional work. And two, I found that like instances were easier. Like that's the thing about World of Warcraft, especially being in and out of it for the last 10 years,
Hmm.
is that to me, over time, it's gotten more and more easy.
Right.
They've taken a lot of stuff out that used to be in it. And on top of that, your they keep on adding in additional like features, which always feel like they're like stapled on. It's like it was this like big majestic creature that they just keep stapling body parts on. They're like, oh no, like we need something fresh. Here's some pet combat we're gonna staple on here. Oh geez, well let's staple on some like slightly more story driven missions or like cinematic story driven missions.
Sure.
Yeah, like it was like they just kept like stapling parts onto this like beautiful creature that they'd worked to refine.
Hmm.
And then like when it kind of hit its peak, they're like, ugh, new stuff.
Yeah.
Like
You got to
just
keep people
shoehorning it
interested
in.
some
And
way.
yeah, I guess you're
Especially
keeping.
since like some people play this game like 6 hours a day or more, right? So
Oh, like absolutely. There were some things that I absolutely loved. Like I liked that they had huge events,
hmm
like huge world changing events, like the Cataclysm, when they basically changed like a lot of your like beginning areas.
hmm
Like the Barrens was totally changed. I mean, bear like anyone who remembers classic WoW remembers like good old, grinding up to 20 in the Barrens, and on top of that, Barrens chat, which was always inappropriate. I guess I should say any Horde character because Alliance people really wouldn't have been out in the Barrens. But yeah, it like as time went on, it was just all these additional features. Oh, and base building. The last expansion that I played was Warlords of Draenor, and it had a base building element. So yeah, it's just more and more additional features that uh, I had no interest in.
fair enough.
The world events were cool and all of that. There was a lot of interesting mechanics early on, like you could grab some of the big world bosses.
hmm
Like you could grab Onyxia and you could kite her all the way back into Stormwind, where she
Be a
would.
jerk, so it kills everybody.
Yes.
hmm Were you one of those people?
No.
All
Um.
right.
No. But no, you could have a lot of fun early on, and there was things that they took out, like a feature like that.
hmm
They're like, yeah, it's kind of
Game breaking.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was really good. And then what I found was I kind of shelve it for a while. A new expansion would come out, I would pick it up and start playing it again for like a month, get through the content and shelve it again. And
Yeah, it seems to be what a lot of World of Warcraft players do,
yeah, you kind of
except for
like
like the devout.
you float in and out through the expansions.
hmm
So between expansions, because sometimes there's like huge gaps,
hmm
and I would try other MMOs, um, just to see if maybe this is something I would be interested in. I mean, I liked WoW, and maybe I'll like this.
hmm
And what I ended up finding so many times was that it was almost like they were just a clone.
Yeah.
Like I really liked the Old Republic at first,
hmm
and then the more I played it, the more I'm like, this is just Star Wars WoW. That might be a hot take. I don't know. But to me, when I first played it
hmm
originally, I know it's gone through some changes now and it's a little bit different.
Right.
But even still, um, grab some footage right here. It still felt like Warcraft to
hmm
me. So, yeah, like a lot of things. I don't want to say everything, but a lot of the things that I played had cool mechanics,
hmm
had cool concepts, had cool story, but they felt like WoW. And I found a lot of things at that time were trying to copy the formula.
Yeah, they were really trying to capitalize on it, especially since the trend was growing and growing, and there was so many subscriber user bases that you could like pull from, and then like gain have monetary gain from.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's like, oh, well, this section of people likes playing Warcraft because they like the gameplay loop,
hmm
but they don't really care about fantasy, but they really like Star Wars. So here's this.
yeah.
Or, there's this section that really likes superheroes. So here's like City of Heroes and City of
hmm
Villains, and even DCU Online,
hmm
which I just find to be like City of Heroes and City of Villains, which
Well,
both
they're
of
copies
those
of each other.
I basically just find to be very similar to WoW. Again, cool elements, cool story stuff, but it's, to me, almost everything through that era seemed to fall back to this that I played.
Yeah.
Because you had different experience in this time because you didn't play World of
No,
Warcraft.
I didn't. And
Weird, like there was like 100 million people playing it.
yeah, I actually had a lot of friends playing the game who were trying to encourage me to play it, but there was a couple things that kind of prevented me from playing it. One was like one of my best friends who plays the game. I don't think he plays it anymore, but I'm not certain. Let me know. But yeah, so the he wanted me to play the game, but he was already like max level, and I was playing Final Fantasy 11 whenever this game came out, and I was like, okay, well, like, can we quest together? And the answer was basically no. And I was like, okay, it's like just get to max level. I'm paraphrasing a lot, obviously, but because we used to play Dungeons and Dragons all the time, and yeah, I was like, okay, well, like, sure, I'll play the game for 3 months, and then maybe we'll be able to play together or something like that, right? And but so I'm like, it kind of prevented me from wanting to play it. That, and I kind of wanted to play Alliance, and he was Horde, and
Why would
yeah,
you want to be
because
Alliance?
I liked the campaign better in Warcraft, and yeah,
Adults play Horde.
okay,
Adults play Horde.
adults play both. I don't, yeah, but whenever I was in college, I had a couple of friends and colleagues who played EverQuest 2. And I looked into the game and kind of like watched somebody play it for quite a bit, and it really intrigued me because it had a bunch of aspects that I saw that World of Warcraft didn't have that this game had that I kind of enjoyed a little bit more. There was more classes and more segregation between what each of them did and stuff like that. And there's like I mentioned before, I liked playing utility and support classes. So I played an illusionist in this game, which is kind of neat because they're a crowd control and mana battery basically once you get high enough level, and
Okay.
no other class in the game could do that. And I thought that was really really cool. Inadvertently, it was actually the lowest played class on any of the servers. So I would always be able to find somebody too, instead of just like playing like a white mage who either would be like botted or they already have one or something like that, right? And yeah, so I found the extra classes really interesting. I found the graphics to be more consistent because if you go into different areas of, and I found this more so whenever I actually did play WoW years later, because one of my friends who I went to college with basically convinced me to play it for a couple months. If you compare Classic WoW to Burning Crusade to any of the other expansion packs, you'll notice the areas look very, very different. And it's not an aesthetic difference, I'm talking about a graphical difference. The graphics are more detailed and better rendered to the point where Classic WoW has trees that are floating and Burning Crusade doesn't. And I used to laugh every single time I would see this and point it out and just be like, why am I playing this? But EverQuest, for example, you had the different art styles, and I get that. I just wish that they would have updated all the areas. But EverQuest, whenever they would update the graphics or change something, they would update all spectrums of it. You wouldn't just get the one place that was necessarily updated, so everything had a cohesion and it all kind of looked the same. You still had different variant areas that looked different, like the Fadar area was a lot different than the human area. Like they aesthetically looked a lot different. So there was also that you could have your own house, and then all of the crafting and stuff like that seemed to be. I could like do a lot of the stuff on the house, and there was a much different diversification of the auction board and stuff like that because some of the crafting was specifically for the houses and stuff like that.
Okay.
So if I was a carpenter, for example, I could make like beds and benches and stuff like that for people's houses, and some of them were much more rare and stuff like that. So you could, have different options like that. Like my one friend was an armor smith, for example, and you could make like a um, mannequins and then put armor on them and stuff like that. So then people would actually be buying them to make their castle and stuff like that or house look depending on what you've bought look cooler. There was guild halls, which your guild or link shell, whatever you want to call it, guilds in EverQuest could actually all go to and have the communal, not necessarily area. It wasn't just a group chat; it was a physical area you could go to, and you could actually EQ1 has this as well, but you could actually like contribute by like crafting items to like put up uh, different things and whatnot in your guild and contribute to it. So I thought that community was a lot easier to have within EverQuest as well.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But my favorite feature about the entire game was that it didn't matter if I was level 80 maxed and then you were level 20 and you wanted to do a mission with me, because I could actually right click on you and then de-level myself to yours. And then I could basically all my equipment would basically ratio percentage down in power to that level. And sometimes some items would make things like super easy and stuff like that, but like that item was super rare to begin with anyway. But the main point of it was is that I was effectively like a decked out level 20 character. Like even my equipment would descale and stuff like that. And I felt that they did a really good job of it, because then I could go ahead and do this level 20 instance with you and it wouldn't really matter. I couldn't go up, but I could go down. So that was really, really cool.
Now, I think eventually WoW added in a feature like
I
that.
think WoW finally added in a feature that was very, very similar to it. Yeah, because I always put this as a point where it was like, well, like I'm not playing for 3 or 4 months to try and get to the max level, so
Hmm.
that like maybe eventually you won't even be playing it, and I've got to play by myself to catch up, and it is going to be very hard for me to do and stuff like that. If it had this feature, I would be more apt to doing it. And whenever I did play WoW, to its credit, I basically insta leveled from like level 10 to max level, like which is 80 or 90 or whatever, like in an instant. Which was kind of funny because I was playing with 3 other people, and you could give other people levels by like holding experience or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it works. So if you're a World of Warcraft player and you know how this works and it's not 100% on it, I didn't play the game for that long. I'm sorry. I apologize. But like, basically gave you experience, and then you'd level up like 60 times. And we did it on an airship where there was like 100 people around, and people were like, "What the hell?" Like that was my only fond experience of playing that game. Like I
See, I
didn't.
always thought you didn't play World of Warcraft because of your crippling allergy to Tauren.
Okay.
I thought that was the reason why.
All right.
But
One of the last things that is my favorite thing about EverQuest 2 was that I didn't have to buy Classic WoW and Burning Crusade and the Lich King expansion pack individually if I came in during the Lich King part. With EverQuest, you actually only had to buy the latest expansion pack, and it would actually give you all of them together. So there was literally only like a $40 buy-in with a subscription instead of like a $150 buy-in and the subscription, which is basically what I ended up having to do whenever I eventually tried World of Warcraft, because it was like the Wrath of the Lich King time, and like yeah, it was basically like $20 like
so I think by then they actually had like a battle chest out.
they
That's
did, but the battle chest only had the Burning Crusade with it, and I
yeah,
had to buy the Wrath of the
Wrath
Lich King.
separate.
Yeah, but it still cost more than just the base game. It was kind of like a combined cost.
Now, would did EverQuest 2 have like physical expansions that they would release?
Yeah, yeah, every 2 years.
So, um, see that I like that. Like that's a great feature for new players,
Hmm.
but for someone who's playing um for a long period of time, I feel like that would irritate me
But
because
you're paying
I
for
would
the extra
still
content.
have to pay to buy the new expansion,
True, but
even though a new player could
it's
just come
gonna
in and
if
purchase
if
that
you look
and
at it within the time that it happened, it would be the exact same thing that you'd be doing if you're playing World of Warcraft or EverQuest 2.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I'm mad for no reason.
But
I'm
today,
mostly jealous.
yeah, today, basically, usually you would get the expansion packs in free to play games for free, which is kind of a totally different topic. But
Or
yeah.
not even because there are things again uh played some Old Republic
Hmm.
to grab some footage, and the expansion content is like an additional cost.
Yep.
So it's
Even I think the Elder Scrolls Online game is you have to pay for each expansion pack individually, or you can only play the certain ones. Yeah,
Yes.
which is the WoW model. But yeah, I like the EverQuest 2 model a lot more
That's
because you actually got all the stuff preceding that.
it's more
The
accessible for new
Yeah,
players.
the only incentive you would have to buy the previous ones was to get the little goodie because all the old ones had coins in the boxes and miniatures in the boxes. So if
Oh,
you wanted those, you could go back and get them. That is something that I did. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, so EverQuest, I played it from the Echoes of Fadar till Sentinel's Fate, so that's about 2006 until to about 2010, and I played it on
wow.
and off. So I played it for quite a while, and I just really, really enjoyed it until basically the guild fell apart, and then we segregated so much that basically it was only my one friend and I who played, and we're just like, well, he was a tank and I was illusionist, so crowd control. What was cool about the game was because of our classes, uh, we learned to play the game and do instances that were 4 and 6 man just with 2 people. Because of our classes, we were able to basically, I was able to like crowd control what we needed to and kite and go through the instances very slowly, just the two of us. So yeah, that was really fun as well. But I did pause for a little bit. I kind of played the game while I was playing Dungeons and Dragons Online as well, because I got that near spring break. I ended up buying a pre-order copy from a classmate who hadn't even opened it yet or used the key, and I played that for a few months, and I found that game really, really interesting because it had a whole bunch of features and developments that what I hadn't seen in MMOs before. And those features that I'm referring to are like it had in-game voice chat, which I found really, really
That's pretty
interesting.
cool.
I didn't have to use TeamSpeak or anything. Uh, and also, the instances were very short. You could really easily, quickly find a party of people and then run through an instance in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
And it wasn't like some of the like 3 hour instances that I was doing in EverQuest. There wasn't any single player content. Like, I really loved exploring the world and stuff like that, and like the crafting mechanic and all this other stuff, because I felt like I had like worth in the world and stuff like that. But yeah, but those features made it neat to play, just like short bursts of it. So I would play it like maybe once or twice a week for a few months, and then like go through a bunch of the instance dungeons and stuff like that. So yeah, that was kind of my experiences during the era of whenever MMOs were like their most mainstream, kind of like the WoW era of the games that I kind of played there. But eventually,
All good things come to an end. Because it's funny that
yeah,
you just mentioned D&D Online.
yeah,
Because I picked up a copy of D&D Online, as well as, I want to say, Age of Conan,
mm-hmm,
from a Radio Shack
mm-hmm,
for... Oh, no, sorry. The Source, for I think $2 a
mm-hmm.
piece. Because they were, like, clearing them out. It might have been even cheaper.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why is because they became free to play, or at least became free to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Age of Conan did as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the thing. A lot of these games had come out, and trying to emulate and cash in on that, I don't know, that magic that there was in World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And just I would say almost none of them hit the mark.
Yeah, some of them were successful enough to gain their niche, but none of them really became as popular and as large as a player base as World of Warcraft for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, you see a lot of publishers switching
Mm-hmm.
to these like buy to play, where you would just purchase the game itself and then it was free to play from that point on,
Yeah, like Guild Wars.
like Guild Wars, which was a great example,
Mm-hmm.
and did incredibly well.
Yeah, a
And I
lot of
think they
people are very
introduced
fond of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2.
and Guild Wars 2 eventually had microtransactions as well. So they were still milking you for some,
Mm-hmm.
but
They got to
it,
make their money somehow.
yeah, and it wasn't over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you had straight free to play where you could just download it and go. Like you had freemium models.
Mm-hmm.
Just a big shift
Yeah.
in how you were able to access that content and what you had to put in to actually like enjoy that.
Yeah, and I find I think one of the main reasons why this kind of happened in history is because a lot of people that I know, they had their subscription and they never really bothered canceling it during the months that they weren't playing.
Yeah.
And eventually that really started to bother people. Like throughout the years that I played EverQuest, there were some times where I didn't play for 4 months and I paid for those 4 months. And I didn't have to. I could have just dropped it and then come back and then play it and everything would have been there. And that kind of, in my opinion, I feel was at least a small factor in why some people found the free to play model a little bit more enticing because they didn't have to worry about things like that, where they
Yeah.
were kind of putting funds into something and they weren't necessarily using it. Because that is annoying whenever things like that happen.
Oh, absolutely. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, then you get into a point where like these like you've got games actually offering additional content.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, well, if you want to pay,
Mm-hmm.
you can progress beyond, say, like level 30.
Yeah.
But up until that level 30 point, it's no cost, right?
Yeah.
Which is also nice because it gives players a chance to like get their feet wet, see if this is something for me. Maybe it's not,
Yeah.
you know.
And during this time, like you kind of saw a lot of players kind of delve away from the popular MMOs like Warcraft and EverQuest 2. And even they actually started partial free to play access to some of their content, where it was limited, just kind of basically to entice some people who might be newcomers to so that they could try it. They didn't have to necessarily put down the full
Yeah.
cost of the game, which
Well, and even
yeah,
even doing things to try to pull players back. I mean, a lot of my examples are World of Warcraft because that's
what you played the most.
mostly what I know. But they had refer a friend programs where you could send a friend a free month,
Hmm.
and if they signed up for a month after that, you got a mount and a free month.
Yeah.
So actually, you both got the mount because I ended up sending it to a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
You had things like the Scroll of Resurrection, where if someone hasn't played for like a year, you can send this to your friend, and if they come back, like all of these different incentives,
Hmm.
and I think you can even play up to level 20 for free.
Right.
Plus, I keep getting emails from them saying like, "Hey, we'll give you a boost up to like level 100.
Yeah.
You can get a brand new character up to level 100 if you want to.
Yeah.
Come back and play."
Now with WoW, the big incentive is that you don't have to play through because people only care in that game about the end game content. They
Well,
they really don't care about the low level stuff. And I
it's
found that was a big difference between EverQuest 2 and World of Warcraft was that there was actually whenever a new expansion pack came out, they actually would add in content that was available at lower levels as well. So you'd actually would have a reason to go back to low levels and use the D-level system so you could actually play through some of these lower level instances and have them be interesting. So it's literally not just smash, smash, and you're going through it with complete ease and stuff like that.
So that kind of brings us to, I guess, the Renaissance or resurgence
Yeah, kind
of
of where,
MMOs, kind of like where we are right now.
yeah.
Because we kind of had that period between like 2010 and 2015 where you kind of had things stagnating.
Yeah, especially since a lot of the player base died down.
Yeah, you see a huge drop off in player base. You've got like you have games straight up closing down, like Star Wars Galaxy shut down.
Hmm.
You had EverQuest Next, which never happened.
Yeah, it just got canceled due to basically after many years of development, they felt that the amount of players that would have played the game wouldn't have been enough to sustain the game anyway. So they basically just canceled it.
See, this is what you get for saving money on expansions. Uh,
I guess.
um, but so you have new games coming out during this time period, which have new ideas, um, newer visuals, which isn't key,
Yeah, that's always happening.
but
And I find the biggest point of these new games is that they kind of taken a note from DDO, and they're much shorter to play. You don't necessarily have to play for 2 or 3 hours at a time. You can go ahead and play like a dungeon in ESO, for example, and I believe like a dungeon in that takes about as long as a League of Legends match. Like it doesn't take that long. It's
Yeah.
like 20 to 40 minutes or something like that, depending on what it is.
I mean, personally, I've played a lot of Final Fantasy 14,
Mm-hmm.
which came out during this time period. And again, a dungeon you can get through in like less than an hour.
Yeah.
Particularly the primals. I'm sure getting into like more end game content, obviously, the further you go, the harder things get.
Yeah, there's going to definitely be content that you will play that there's some content that's like a 1 or 2 hour instance, for example, but then the major difference in design basically is that you do still have that content that's shorter. And to the older games credit, or at least I can say in EverQuest 2, there were some shorter instances that would only take like 20 minutes and stuff like that. But
See, I don't
it's
remember any instances that would take 20 minutes in WoW.
yeah,
I mean, classic WoW,
right.
an instance was even a low level instance was going to take you like 3 hours.
Yeah, I think a major reason why those instances in EverQuest 2 were taking only like 20 minutes or something like that is because it was content from an older dungeon that you were doing, and you had equipment from like 3 expansions later, and
Yeah.
you could like mow through it. Yeah.
But it, again, you've got these new ideas coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the important thing. I mean, your gameplay loop is essentially the same.
Right.
Quest, like find person who needs help.
Yep.
Here's a quest. Go do quest.
Mm-hmm.
Come back. Get gold experience and maybe item.
Yep.
Rinse and repeat. But it comes down to the presentation, and it also comes down to how they value your time. And to me, that was one of the things that I really liked about Final Fantasy XIV.
Right.
I liked that you made a character. I could make a dozen characters if I want to. But if I make, I make one character, I go through, I like the way these ears are. I like this haircut. I like that hair color. This, sort of the rabbit people are super cool. I can't remember. It has been a few years since I played it.
Mm-hmm.
But you make your character, and then you don't have to make another one.
Yeah.
Like you have your like base classes, and then you have advanced classes, which typically you need two base classes at like level 20, and then you can upgrade and get this advanced class. So you're not making a dozen characters.
Right.
You can reuse a lot of the items that you have from your previous character.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not some like level 1, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're still level 1 and you have basic abilities, but you have better gear.
Yeah, you're kind of resetting your class basically.
You're just
Not your
resetting the
character
class.
level, you're resetting your class level is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you drop down to level 1 as an archer. So for example, I really wanted to be a black mage
Mhm.
because damage all the way.
Right.
And to do so, I needed to start as like I want to say a thaumaturge,
Okay.
and I needed to get that up to 20, and I needed to get archer up to 20.
Right.
And you have class quests, which are specific to that class, which
Yep.
is really neat. And then
Yeah, we had those in EQ2 where like to get your set gear, you had to do like I had to do these specific illusionist class quests in order to get my full set of gear. It was really cool.
Yeah, and it's neat being able to go back and just being like, okay, well, I'm gonna follow this quest line, for the archer,
Mhm.
and that will take me up to 20. And in some cases, you can go to a new area.
Right.
Like I'll go to the other. I think there's 3 starting cities.
Okay.
So I went to one of the other cities and I did all of their starting stuff because why not?
Do you just teleport over there or something?
Um,
Because like in the first one, you had to like treacherously go through the land,
oh, that's right.
and
Yeah,
like you die so often
you
if you tried
did.
to
It
do
was
it
was
too
so
early.
incredibly dangerous. No, there's airships.
Okay.
There's airships that travel between them, and
Gotcha.
It's not like 11 where I think you needed to be a certain level to use an airship.
Yeah, you did. Initially, anyway. And yeah, basically, I think it was like level 20 or 30 that you could more or less easily get to the other places. But it's been years since I played FF11, so.
But I had a ton of fun with 14, and I found the story quests were really engaging. There was cinematics the whole way through.
Right.
The story itself was cool.
Mm-hmm.
They keep releasing like high quality expansions
Mm-hmm.
that, yes, again, adding end game content.
Right.
But they do put in, I think, new races, and they've got new classes.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. And I haven't played the latest expansion,
Okay.
but everybody that I've talked to has raved about it. Like, they have said it is the best MMO experience that they have had, period.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard really good things about A Realm Reborn, and it's a fascinating story about coming. The game is a phoenix. It truly is.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
I haven't
releasing
played it,
broken
but
and
yeah.
then being like, "Ugh, we're gonna fix that," and then like, bam, here we go.
Yeah.
Because I started playing it on the PS4,
Okay.
and it played flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had access to all my abilities, and like, as a spellcaster, that's one of those things that's a big concern, is you have these like huge skill bars typically,
Right.
and I had no issues chucking out spells, doing whatever I needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then I switched over to PC
Mm-hmm.
when I jumped into a different expansion, and like, no difference.
Yeah.
I had just as much fun using the keyboard as I did using the controller.
Yeah. They learned a lot from the cross functionality from PS2 to PC in the original. Then they.
And Xbox 360.
Yeah. Sure. That's
And
it.
360.
It is the console I had during that generation, so I shouldn't forget about it. But yeah. But yeah, so as time went on, yeah, interests of MMOs changed, and new genres kind of started to take their place, kind of taking their own piece of the online pie, and online action RPGs and loot shooters kind of became the genres that sort of bit away at the MMO piece, and the games now kind of exist in their own space where MMOs used to be the dominator. And I feel that this kind of happened because people's tastes kind of change and evolve over time, as we've kind of attested to in our stories over time, as like our tastes kind of waned and changed and things like that. And also mainly a large part of it, I think, is the time commitment that people have to basically put into these types of games. Because like a game such as World of Warcraft or EverQuest 2, require tremendous amount of time commitment than like a loot shooter or like a MOBA or
It's
even the
true. I
newer
mean,
MMOs like
I
ESO.
I ran through I think the main storyline of Destiny
Mm-hmm.
in about maybe 20 hours.
Yeah, it was. I think I recall it being about that long
And
too.
like, it takes you right to max level, and then you can start doing the end game content if you want to.
Yep.
But it gets you there. And it's things like that. You've got the Division as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the Division 2. They they essentially offer the same gameplay loop as everything else,
Yeah.
but just in a different package. Like,
Yes.
you're still, like I said before, you're still going and getting those quests. You're still going and doing those quests. You're
Yeah.
coming back. You're getting your experience. You're getting your gold, or I don't know,
Yeah, they're certainly using the same core
dollars,
concepts.
credits,
Gil.
gil. But it's just how you're getting there is a little bit different. Whether you're using an AR-15. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know guns. Or like a bow.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different. It's just a different package of the same thing.
Yep.
But ultimately, what's your favorite MMO? Let us know down in the comments.
Yeah, and be sure to check us out every week. We release new podcast episodes on Wednesdays. And next week, definitely stay tuned because we're going to Fan Expo in Toronto. And yeah, we're going to have a special Fan Expo episode.
Gonna play a bunch of video games.
Yeah, we're going to check out a whole bunch of new stuff. Hopefully, the new Zelda game and some other things. We will
JC
see
cares about
as time-
nothing but new Zelda.
Yeah, nothing but new Zelda.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
So what's your favorite RPG? Tell us below in the comments.
MMO.
Fuck me.
Already did that episode.
Oh.